Let's get back to our DIY accounting system. From early on, I just created the validation for the transaction currency. From the last video, we create the transaction currency code and settle currency code, right? So in this video, we are going to create 4 more columns to facilitate validation for the transaction currency column and the settle bank currency column. Okay, let me just go over how I did it. For the transaction currency, I'm going to create 2 columns. Transaction currency first. This one refers to the first cell of my current list. Let me go back to my currency list. This is the first cell D8, first value of the currency select text. Just go back to my bookkeep. I can simply double click this. If the transaction num count is 0, it returns a dash, so it returns nothing. Otherwise, it will return the string of my curl list and the cell absolute value D8. Okay, so the num count equals 0 means, let me just go back to the num count in the backend. This is what we did previously, the transaction num count. So when the num count equals 0, like this one, that means the system transaction number appears more than once. We don't need to enter the details for the same invoice. Just like this one, purchase invoice 002. When it appears for the first time, we assign the transaction num count a letter P. When it appears again, that is the multiple settlement situation, we don't assign a num count for the same invoice so that it helps us avoid entering duplicate information to the same invoice. It is the same case for the revenue transaction and the withdrawal bank transaction. When it is 0, that means the invoice appears for more than once. Then we just assign a dash. We don't need to enter anything. Otherwise, we are going to refer to the first cell of our currency list. And then for the transaction currency range, just like what we did in the previous videos, when the first cell and the associated range changes, you can switch to another Dropbox. So it's kind of like a dynamic switch of search list, right? So we need the transaction currency range. Basically what it does is similar. So when the first cell is a dash, that means it's nothing. Then we go on to assign a nothing, a dash. Otherwise, if the transaction currency first cell has value, that means we have to look up for the range. Then we are going to look up from the range in my currency list, column currency select text. That is, let me just go to my current list, my currency list. This is the column. Go back to the backend. That is the column that we are looking for. In order to look up from the range of the currency select text, we have to use a formula like this, indirect, and then we just select the first cell. That formula is going to refer back to the cell D8 in my currency list. And then we use a colon, and then we do an index. And then we have to look up for the range, right? The range is wrapped around in the indirect function of the transaction currency range, comma, because we have blank cells in the currency select text column. That's why we need the count if indirect, because we're going to fill in the range, right? The range is also this one. So we just click the transaction currency range, close the bracket, comma, and then we fill in the criteria. The criteria is a double quote, a pound key, and a question mark, and then we close with the double quote. If the cell value in my currency list current selection text is more than 1 character, then we're going to return that, okay? Then we close the bracket for the count if and close a bracket for index. Double click that, copy this one, just go outside, and then just point to anywhere in the spreadsheet. Control F3 to bring up the name manager, and then click new, call this transaction currency Dropbox. And then I refer to, let me just select everything, backspace or wipe it, Control V to paste our formula. Alright, so this one should work. Let me close it. With that formula, let me go back to the transaction currency, press Alt-DL to bring up the data validation. Then the source is going to be F3 and trans currency Dropbox rate. So this is the one we just create. Okay, and then we can select the currency. Control C, just select the whole column and then right click, paste special, and then the validation. Okay, then let's say for this one, purchase invoice 002. Here I expect, let's say if I select USD, let me go to the backend. Our transaction currency code is USD, right? Then for the next row, we have the purchase invoice 002 again. So I expect not to be able to select currency, right? Because I have select USD here. So let me just click the cell and then I click the Dropbox. So I cannot select anything, okay? At the end of the bookkeeping interface, I'm going to create a conditional formatting so that it will return a white space. Okay, let me just save it. Actually, I've spotted a problem. It's like this one. Let's say if the invoice section includes withdrawal bank transaction. So for example, like this one, if I use the bank 0 for a withdrawal transaction once, if I use the bank 0 to perform a withdrawal transaction again, I should not be able to select currency because I'm expected to return Canadian dollar for bank 0. So let me change the formula of the transaction currency first column. So there are two conditions. When the type is a purchase or sales and the transaction num count equals 0, then I will return a dash, right? Because we are not going to enter anything. Or, let me just make it this way. Or the type equals bank and just wrap the or. And the withdrawal bank code is a dash. Change this one. So the type is going to be, so the transaction type equals purchase and the num count equals 0. And I'm just getting lazy. Just copy that, Alt Enter. Or when the transaction type equals R, which is a sales transaction, and the transaction type equals boy, which is a bank transaction, you just copy this. And the withdrawal bank code is blank. So if either one of these three conditions holds, we will not enter the currency. Otherwise, we are going to refer to the first cell of the currency. I found the problem again. Let me just go to the end of the transaction currency first. So before that, my condition was R, which is wrong, right? Because you see the R above. So I should change this one to bank to B. When it is a bank transaction and the withdrawal bank code is blank, that means it appeared before. So we should return a blank, right? Otherwise, I can go to the first cell. So now let me test this one. Bank 2 hasn't appeared under transaction party, which is the withdrawal side, but it appears under the settlement bank count, right? So when I do a withdrawal transaction with Bank 2, I should not be able to select the currency, right? So even if I click it, I can't select it. Save it.